So first point is what's wrong with demographics. That's what a lot of people use. A lot of people still use and demographics. Just got a couple of examples of why demographics aren't a particularly effective way of grouping people into a target audience. So we had a client who wanted to launch a television channel focusing on cooking. And so this client said, well, my target market is women 18 to 39. That was their assumption, because that's the cooking on television audience. So we produced this to convince them that actually what they needed was a segmentation, because that's a huge assumption. So they took all their money, basically, and decided we're going to spread it around women 18 to 39, and that's where we will focus our efforts. Now, the trouble with that is some of that is well targeted, because it's based on an assumption, but some of it's going to be right. Some of it is not bad, but some of it's a waste of money. So every penny or dollar or euro spent on people who are simply not interested is a waste of money, but that is what demographic assumptions do. And just as bad, it ignores people who might be in your target market. Why should the people, and the two top people in the top left corner, not be in the same segment? Why should they not be in the same target market? There's no good reason. So demographic assumptions are not effective. It's another example. If it's a client, two brands, their portfolio, brand one and brand two, and two key competitors. So they define their market demographically, which means older men, older women, younger women. Again, useless. It doesn't differentiate any particular audience. All the brands, your own brands, your competitors' brands, look very similar. It does not tell you who your target audience is. So we did a segmentation. And what came out of that was 6 segments. And what comes out of that is a very clear targeting strategy. And that is what segmentation can give you. So what the finding was that our client is doing a great job competing with themselves. So roughly a third of their audience for both their brands comes from midnight callers. Another big chunk from the lads. That means they're competing for the same audiences with their two brands, and they are leaving some key audiences. So take this one, Weekend Grandmas, leaving it to this competitor with virtually no competitor. They're nowhere. So the strategy that comes out of that, what's the action that comes out of that? Well, if this brand focuses on these people, and you take that bit of their activity and focus it against the competition, because you're doing very well with the midnight callers with your brand here, so you don't need to reach them with these people. Target these people, take share from your competitor instead of yourself. So then what a segmentation does is provide a lot of information to enable you to do that. Again, who do I want to target and how? I want to target there to take share from my competitor, not myself. And in order to do that, I need 2 levels of information. I need to understand who are the audiences in my market in a way that brings them to life, in a very human way. So I understand them as people and personas, but underlying that, there needs to be a lot of data and information that helps me when I want to decide I want to target an audience, gives me the information to know how to do that. So how does that work in practice? Well, this is, again, another concrete example. If, for the sake of argument, you're launching a movie, and so it's a family movie and it's a comedy drama, and you do a segmentation, you've got your segments, and you know that 3 big moviegoer segments, segments A, B, and C, are there. So you've got segment B, the orange one, for example, 14% of the population, 22% of moviegoers. Is that useful? Not really, because it just tells you who goes to the movies. You need to be able to dig under. Starts to be useful. Who goes to family movies? And suddenly you've got a segment, the blue one there, only 6% of the population, but that's very important for family movies. So suddenly you've got a whole new audience that just looking at who goes to lots of movies is not going to tell you. You've got a new segment to target, which is the family movies. So it starts to be useful. But really what good segmentation does is hones in very precisely and specifically on your most important audience. If you are launching a comedy drama movie, I need to know who goes to family comedies, who goes to family dramas, what specific audience goes to those. And that, what comes out there is segment C and segment D. So then, what a segmentation needs to do is tell me, okay, if I'm going to target segment C, how do I go about that? What are the factors that are going to influence their choices and make them more likely to come to choose my movie? So if this is family dramas, what the segmentation tells me is if I want to reach segment C, what are the things, what are the barriers, what are the things that are going to make them not go to a family movie or a drama? Too much male testosterone, that's the highest one. Too complex plots. So that starts telling me how I communicate and what are the factors that I focus on when I'm communicating to this audience. Similarly, what are the triggers that are going to make them want more likely to go to a drama? Well, entertaining stories and compelling characters, not special effects. So this is, if you want to reach this audience, don't emphasize the special effects, emphasize the stories and the characters. So again, all the segmentation is doing, saying, I've got an audience, it's helping me decide who I want to target, and it's giving me information that tells me how to target them. The whole point of this is to grow business and generate commercial revenues by delivering the right thing to the right people. And similarly, if, say, it was a Disney, if I was Disney, I used to work for Disney, so I just use this as a brand for illustration. Once I know about getting them to come to dramas, what about my brand? How does my brand affect their choice? What's important to me? What makes them more, what are the triggers that makes them want to come to Disney? What are the barriers that are going to put them off coming to a Disney movie? If they're concerned that Disney is too safe and predictable, well, that's a barrier and I need to overcome. But the fact that Disney may have too many sequels is not a problem for these people. So again, it's giving me the information so I can target them effectively. And this is just a great example of using well-targeted segmentation. If I know that segment C, D, and E are my core target for this film, and I know, for example, that these people are triggered by dramas and relationship, well, I give them a drama and a relationship message. I know they read magazines, so I put that in magazines. Similarly, these people are triggered by action, and they go to the cinema, so I put a very different message in the cinema. It's giving the right people the right message, which makes them more likely to go. So effectively, what segmentation is doing is we know that all of you running businesses, a lot of expertise, a lot of existing information, you can grow using that. What segmentation gives you a lift, gives you a head start, gives you information to focus your efforts against the right target audience, and it sharpens your growth. And if you integrate it and use it well, it accelerates that growth. So this is what good segmentation, good targeting is doing. It's reducing the wastage, and it's accelerating the growth by providing the right products, services, propositions, brands, and messaging to the right audience. Just a little bit about us, clusters. What we do is we use analytical rigor, but the important bit is the actionable outcomes. What I've hopefully demonstrated is it's not just about interesting insight. This is about stuff you use to refine the way you go to market and accelerate your growth. And it's using evidence to replace assumption. We've been around for 10 years, and our backgrounds were a blend of client and agency experience. My background is client-side marketing, and we also have agency background people. We have a set of proprietary algorithms and software that deliver greater precision and accuracy in the segmentation. And we do lots of different projects and segmentations for lots of different clients in different categories and countries. So we've worked in it's probably nearer 40 countries now and many, many categories. I'm just going to hand to my colleague David, who I completely failed to introduce at the beginning, just to talk about this.
Yeah, okay, this isn't the main focus, but when we set up clusters, we had sort of three principles. One was that we wanted to work on measurable impact of business problems, not theory. And since the background of people did the algorithms and physicists and mathematicians, we cared primarily about behaviour, purchasing, changing brands, those sort of things. We also care about some of the softer stuff, but as Chris said, particularly focused on motivations to change behaviour and barriers to doing that. So we're very pragmatic. Second thing is, we didn't want to be theoreticians. We started up with people who've actually been on the other side as users and agency people, so we try and make this real life for clients. It doesn't, theory is a route to making the business change, not an end in itself. And the third area was we were very rigorous about the fact that we only wanted to work with an algorithmic approach which was robust, business-oriented, and proprietary. And as Chris said, primarily in the early years we did segmentation. That was our first set of algorithms and our focus on the business. But just to give you a taste, we've actually developed and are developing a whole series of other algorithmic solutions to certain business improvement problems. We don't want to be a general consultancy. We don't want to come in and say we're really smart, we can create great advertising. We want to be able to use algorithms and use our experience to improve business performance for clients. Some examples of the things that our algorithms do. Most people have got a CRM now. CRMs have got sometimes the wrong data to do strategy with, as you know. We have ways of projecting a segmentation onto a CRM and using it not just to interact with clients, but also to prospect for ways of making existing clients more attractive with better segments. We do a fair bit of work now on optimizing packaging and pricing, including in some cases pricing strategy, not getting into self-defeating price wars with competitors, for example. To do that well, you need to understand how your customers really interact with your product and how they think about pricing, and that's best done segment by segment. We do proposition testing and campaign design. We don't do creative, but we test the propositions in a very rigorous way against the segments and against the performance and the behaviour and the barriers and motivations. And we're doing more and more work now on sales and distribution channel network optimization, another set of algorithms we've developed, which typically blend digital channels and bricks and mortar channels to optimize the most effective way of getting to a client's customers, segment by segment, in a way that best most builds the business without spending too much money. I shall stop there. Just to give you an idea, we don't just do segmentation, we do build out from segmentation and try and do a lot of business improvement things in a very rigorous way.
Yeah. And to an extent, I'm touching on that in the next part, which is the case study, which is a client for whom we did the segmentation to answer a challenge that they had, and have been working with them for the past 4 years to constantly track, measure, adjust course, improve, see what's working well, what isn't working well. So what I've got is a case study of using segmentation to tackle a business problem and then continuing to use it to drive continuous change. So, the challenge, new brand. Our client was launching a new regional brand in a crowded, inert savings market. And their approach, they wanted to replace a product-centered approach where they're pushing products at people with a customer-centric approach. So, the first point is, in order to be customer-centric, the first challenge is who is or are our core target audiences. And we did a segmentation, and the data that we used to allocate people to segments of the data, effectively the ingredients of the segmentations, broadly fall into 3 buckets, and this is very typical of the projects we run. Firstly, and this is all about actionability, what is the data? If you're going to target a set of people, what information do you need about these people? First set of information is current behaviours. What do they do at the moment in this market? How often do they buy? How loyal are they? What channels do they use? Volume, value, etc., etc. The reason this bucket of data is important is it tells you how valuable I am. If you ask me a bunch of questions about what I do in any of your markets today, that will tell you how valuable I am today in your market, because my behaviours, not my attitudes, my behaviours that affect value. That's what affects the P&L. So the first bucket of data is current behaviours. The second bucket of data we use to segment savers was what we call motivations and barriers. So if I am a saver, or if I am making savings decisions, what are the factors that affect my choice? At two levels. Firstly, what are the factors that affect my choice of whether I want to do savings in the first place? Once I've made that decision, what are the factors that affect my choice of the brand that I use to save with, the company I use? If you know those at a category level and a brand level, if you know the triggers that make me more likely to save and to choose your brand, and the barriers that get in the way of me choosing, making those choices, then that becomes actionable when you're developing marketing, sales, product development, etc. The third bucket of data we used was proposition. If you show me something new in your market, does that change the way I am likely to behave? Does that change my choices? So if you know how valuable I am in your market, the factors that affect my choices, and how I respond to something new and different, then you can start building a brand or a proposition in order to attract my custom. So we did the segmentation, and what came out was 8 segments, and I don't propose to present the whole segmentation to you, but I'm just going to focus on 2 segments that drove the strategy. One segment, segment 1, people who buy a lot of different financial products, so the financially savvy, if you want. And then there's one of these segments who aren't particularly active yet, but we're going to come back to them because they're very important, segment 7. So segments 1 and segment 7. And in a nutshell, segment 1, they've already got most of the products. 80-90% of them have already got most of the products. They're already very active in this market. And they're very low churn intention, so they're not an easy nut to crack. Whereas segment 7 aren't yet very active in the market, but have far and away the highest intention. So segment 7 are the intenders, the savings intenders. What's going on in the market at the moment is that the incumbent brands are all built around segment 1, the financially savvy. So they're all talking to the same people, the financially savvy, and that's how they're reaching the rest of the market. Segment 7, the intenders, is largely ignored. So no one's built a brand around them yet. So that was the targeting strategy that came from the segmentation, to build a brand, a differentiating, disruptive launch strategy around the intenders, as opposed to doing what everyone else is doing. And that was the point. Being like everyone else isn't work. People don't want to churn. They're very established competitors, so we need to be different and stand out. And if we do this well, other people will take note. So it's not just selling to segment 7. We build a brand around segment 7. The intention is that the segment 1 financially savvy are going to sit up, take notice of something new and different. So that was the task. Launch a disruptive brand targeting segment 7. You've got to get noticed and heard, you've got to appeal to their intention triggers, and you've got to overcome their savings barriers. I know it's a cliched example, but it's kind of like Apple and many other brands, which is a good example of a disruptive brand. They design their brand, and still do, around people like the guy on the left, in order to sell to people like that. If you do that the other way around, they sell plenty to these people, but if they design their brand around these people, you're not going to get those people. So you build a brand there in order to attract these people. So the decision was, build a brand around the intenders. So what do we know about these people? Well, we've got the segmentation gives us lots of demographic information about them, gives us lots of information about their savings, what they have, what they intend to get, what are the factors that influence their choice of whether to save, of what brand to choose, where they get their savings, who they save with, lots of information of the different types of saving products, what are the barriers and motivations. So this is all useful stuff if we want to target them. We know a lot about their media usage. And very importantly, we know a lot about them as people. So again, these aren't financial measures, but if you know a particular segment, the most important thing they disagree with is money is the best measure of success. Well, don't do flashy Rolex and Porsches type advertising, because they will not like that. Talk to them in a way that is relevant to them. But without a segmentation, you're not going to know this in the first place. With all this information about a segment, you've not only got the targeting strategy of building a brand around segment 7, but you've got a lot of information about them. So how's it work? Well, they were launching from scratch in a challenging market, initially in just 2 markets. What's their task? I mean, it's classic stuff. First, people need to know you exist. Secondly, they need to consider using you. And then thirdly, they need to get quotes and accept them. In other words, they need to become active customers. It's just the classic customer decision sales funnel. But unsurprisingly, I wouldn't be standing here presenting it. It's been enormously successful. The market entry strategy drove awareness, it drove consideration, and it drove brand KPIs. And critically, the success, building the brand around segment 7, the success has been driven not only by segment 7, but also by the financially savvy. So we've by doing something different in the market, we've interested the most sophisticated segment in the market. That was the strategy. Appeal to segment 1 by building the brand around segment 7. Very ambitious commercial targets were exceeded, and multi-country rollout has been accelerated, which I'll come back to. So within 15 months, it was the #1 savings brand for a few key attributes, not across every attribute, of course, but a better new savings brand, innovative online service. These kind of differentiation, innovation measures were coming through very strongly. Again, driven by segment 7, but especially segment 1. We could track awareness and consideration, so we could compare awareness by tracking regularly by segment to understand who is driving awareness, who is driving consideration, what activities at any particular time that our client was doing were driving awareness. Just a brief point on consideration. It's a real tough one in this market. In most markets, I'd expect 5, 6 brands to be considered. In this market, people only consider 2 brands. So it's very, very difficult to get on the consideration list. Well, by adopting this segment-driven strategy, our client got to number 7. They're ahead of number 7 now, but got to number 7 in awareness and number 2 in consideration. So they are doing the best job in the market, bar one very significant competitor, at converting awareness into consideration. They're punching above their weight in consideration, and that's what you want. It's all very well people being aware of you. If they don't want to consider you, it doesn't help your business. And that is being driven by segment 1, the financially savvy. We know we can provide good information about what are the motivations that are driving consideration. So why do people consider me? A lot of information about the barriers we still have to overcome if we want to accelerate growth, because it's not a done deal. And if recommendation is very important in this market, which it is, we have a lot of information about why people will recommend a savings brand. So as a total package, what that gives you is a segment-driven targeting strategy that drives growth across a market, and a constant, regular segment-driven information that helps you adjust, improve, and accelerate. And the outcome has been a top 5 brand within 18 months of launch, but more importantly for the business, it's worked. And so they've now rolled out to 4 new markets. They're in 6 markets in total, with 2 a year planned over the next couple of years. Again, still driven by the segmentation that we put in place a number of years ago that drove the disruptive new brand. So that's just an example of segmentation in action. It's a particular example because it's launching a new brand. Of course, we usually work with existing brands facing the same problems. Where do I focus my product development? What's the right message to give people? What is my brand proposition? How effective is that? Who should I be targeting for growth? Where am I doing well? Where are my competitors outgunning me, and where can I take share from them? So those are the typical problems that we are helping people solve, but that's just one example. So that's it. Are there any questions?